Hello, everyone. This is March 2nd, 2022. I'm very excited. Um, we've never been far enough down along this trail for to see how things are looking up. I got this little placard here that I like. It says, "Accept the fact that some days you're the pigeon, some days you're the statue." Very true. So today we're going to talk about how NATO, that is to say, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, and company, are not they're not willing to admit that today you are the pigeon, or sorry, today you are the statue, and Putin's the pigeon, Russia is a pigeon, and you're getting pooped on, man. Just face it. And Ukraine is like the base. But there's a lot you can get into about the puppet regime in Ukraine. It was a NATO puppet regime. We poured tons of money into it, just like we have tons of regimes around the world. Not necessarily in and of itself a bad thing. Just like how we should deal with the morality issues in with any neighbor. Um, but at the end of the day, what's going on is with Russia. I have here. I'm not going to read it. I've already read it. I'll post a link in the description, and you can read it. Read it yourself. Putin's own words. Okay, we've had every faction of thought: the liberals, the independents, the libertarians, the constitutionalists, the Green Party, the progressives, and the conservatives and the Republicans, all saying what they think. Right? All their media is pushing their angle. But what I'm really trying to get down to here is what is definite. And what is definite is that Ukraine is a line drawn by people, us, United States, NATO, UN, who never had a vested interest in those people. None of us, no one calling the shots was Ukrainian or Russian for where that line was drawn. Okay? It was drawn arbitrarily. Same as we cause all these fights in Africa over who we back and who we don't back, and pairing up tribes that are mortal enemies for hundreds of years, since before white men had ever been in Africa, man. And this isn't racism. This isn't a race thing. This is just a culture thing. Okay? There is a fraction of Ukrainians that have identified as Russians for hundreds of years. I know this because I studied some Russian history as a kid. History is interesting, sue me. Okay? So then the rest of it is Ukraine, and they consider themselves these like Ukrainian people. There's still some lines that would be disputed by neighboring countries, and some people who would rather be in neighboring countries near the peripheries of Ukraine. But all in all, you have a chunk that, yeah, they do identify as non-Russian. But then there's another layer to this. So Russia is not Russia. It is the Federation of Russia. They're not entirely unlike us. They're a federation of states. They're not a republic, but they're a federation of states. They have always been. Oh, no, sorry, shouldn't say always. They have been a federation of states for a long time, long before Stalin and Lenin had their way into mass havoc and destruction and evil in the 1900s. So it's not that simple, and we should not be going in there and telling Ukrainians, Ukrainian Russians, nationals, separatists, even our puppet people, and definitely shouldn't be telling Russians that we know how the history of their culture better than they do, because we don't. No, that's never the case. It's the same problem with these BLMers. A bunch of white people think they know how freaking black people grew up. Stupid. Or Mexicans grew up. And don't get me started on the whole Asian issue. They don't even know how they forget how they grew up. That's why they think that way. And that's the problem, is we're forgetting our roots, and Putin identifies that it is so arrogant of us, of our leaders, and thus us. This is in the global scheme of things. This is us as a nation. We are responsible for this. This is why we can't just sit back and say, "Oh, dumb Biden, bleep, bleep, bleep," like Campbell Blank Harris, and all this stuff. It's like, no, man. this is our fault. This is the guilt is with us, you know. Sure, it's not like sin in the Bible, individual responsibility before God, but before the world, we are responsible. And, you know, different kind of guilt, right? Doesn't run as deep, thankfully. Thankfully, you know, I know as a Christian, we're all judged individually before God. But before man, we are responsible, and we don't even care to save face anymore as a whole. We're not even willing to kick our piece of junk politicians all out at once. We're not even willing to, as a whole, call them on it. We'll whine, we'll complain, we'll get a guy like Trump in, who looks good, sounds good, talks good, and he's good overall. Um, but we, you know, everybody out, right? So obviously, I'm American. I'm only 30, but man, you see everybody who is going around saying, "Oh, you know, Putin's terrible. Putin's doing this. Russians are killing civilians. You know, Russians are lying. Got nothing bad to say about anyone else." And they're all stumbling over each other, falling over each other, trying to be the first to get in to say that, you know, whatever it is they think that Russia's doing that's terrible. Well, I read Proverbs. This is for proverbial wisdom and truth, this channel, and economics and history and grounding and patience. When everyone is in a hurry, we must be patient. Founding fathers understood that. Of my country, Declaration of Independence. Um, I'm gonna read a little more than one paragraph, but it's a close. Look at this. Doesn't take a whole book. Doesn't take a novel. Doesn't take a novel to form a nation. So it goes. So what they wrote was, "We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world." Supreme Judge is capitalized because they recognize that there is one above them. Again, fundamentals, traditions that are true. Even evil people. Putin's hands aren't washed clean, even though he thinks they are. Putin's hands aren't clean. He's done terrible things, terrible atrocities. He's one of the richest men in the world, while his country's got the economy the size of California. And I have extended relatives who are, they, in our country, it'd be squalor they live in, and they're pretty much the norm. You know, while he's arguably the richest man in the world when you count all his assets. Where I'm going with that is, so they're appealing to God. And then they close with, "And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence," capitalized, "we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." That, that is the price for resolving these things. That is a price for righting our country, not to mention the debts. That's the fortunes. That is the price. That is what needs to be done. Let Russia and Ukraine and NATO settle their deal. We have long since overstepped our bounds. Look at history of NATO. Look at start at the end of World War II and work forward. That's all I got to say. God bless. Take care. Share, like, subscribe. Have a good day.